Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we will be completing in today's video. If you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that is something you are interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, before we get started, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just open up the file that downloads and it'll automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. So take a second to go and grab that and then come back and we will get started. Okay, first things first, we will go over our canvas dimensions. They are 10 inches by 10 inches at 300 dpi or 3000 by 3000 pixels. The color profile that I'm on is the second one on the RGB list. And for our layers today, by the end of the video, we've used about 20 layers, so make sure you have that many available by checking here. If you do not, you can always lower your DPI here to get more layers. And this is our pretty color palette that we'll be working with. So let's just go ahead and get started. First, we will set our background color. So let's open up our layer menu, click on this background color layer, and select your first color on the color palette to fill it in with that color. Next, we will be on layer 1 here, and we are going to just start drawing the top of our cupcake. So let's grab the first color on the second row, grab our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab, and we are just going to draw a perfect circle to start. So draw a circular shape, hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it a perfect circle. Maybe about this big. We don't want it to be ginormous. We want room for our cupcake bottom on the bottom and a candle on top. So let's go ahead and fill this in. Grab our arrow tool, set it to uniform with snapping turned on in the bottom left. And let's go ahead and snap it to the center of the screen where we see both yellow lines. And then from there, maybe move it up just a little bit on this center yellow line to leave a little bit more room at the bottom. Just a teeny bit. Then let's click the warp option over here, and we are going to use this to change the shape of this. We don't actually want it to be a circle, we want it to be more of like a cupcake top, so it's going to be kind of rounded out at the top and flatter at the bottom. So I'm just going to start by kind of dragging these out, maybe just dragging the corners out to get this kind of nice flatter bottom on our cupcake, like this. Just kind of do the same thing on each side, so for the most part it is symmetrical. So now I have a shape that looks like this. Now let's go to our layer menu on this layer, click on it and click on Alpha Lock to turn Alpha Lock on, and now we're going to do some shadows and highlights and everything to really get it looking more 3D. We are first going to grab the second color on the second row, and now we are going to switch our brush to the soft brush under the airbrushing category. Set our brush size to maybe 10%. This is what we're going to use to make all of our shadows and highlights to really make everything look 3D. We just want to be very light with it and blend everything out a lot. We don't want any harsh lines really, but we're going to have the light coming from the top right, so we're going to have this side, the left side, be darker. So I am just going to very lightly, with this darker color, start kind of covering this left side, pushing a little harder as I get closer to the bottom left. About like this. Then we'll grab our third color on the second row and do the same thing a little further out this time, just pretty much right on the left edge there. And then also with this darker color, we are going to drop our brush to maybe 5%, and I am going to run it along the bottom to give a nice shadow there. This one won't be as blended, it will be a little thicker looking. That is okay, that's what we're going for. Like this. Set our brush size back up to maybe 10% and grab the fourth color on the second row, and this will be our lighter color, so we will add this to the right side of our cupcake. Like so. So now it should look like this. Let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer above this layer, click the N on it, and drag it up to overlay. And then click on the layer again and set it to clipping mask. Stick with this fourth color on the second row, and we are going to grab the to be compressed charcoal under the charcoals category. Set it to maybe 10%, and I'm very lightly going to drag this all over my cupcake to add some texture to it to make it look kind of cake-like. Like so. Okay, now we will make the top frosting part of our cupcakes. So we are going to make a duplicate of our main cake shape layer, drag it above all the layers that we have so far so it's on the top. Click on this layer, double check that alpha lock is still turned on, and then grab the fourth color on the second row. Go back to our layer menu on this top layer here, click on it and click fill layer. Click the arrow tool, set it to uniform, and we are going to drag it up a little bit on our center line here, leaving about this much space at the bottom. Then we're going to click our eraser tool. I have mine set to the monoline brush at 100%, and I am going to, starting on the left side here, start erasing, and this will be where my frosting will end. And I'm just going to erase in like a curvy line that gets a little lower on the right side like this. And then I am going to grab my selection tool, set it to automatic, and I'm just going to tap this bottom one. Your whole screen shouldn't turn blue like this. This means my threshold's way too high, so I'm going to slide left on the screen until I'm at maybe like 20%. Undo my selection. And then try it again, just tap the bottom one, perfect. Click the arrow tool and then drag this off the screen. If you have a little bit of a ghost still, which I do, of the edge of your other selection, go ahead and go through and just erase it all the way around. So now we just have our frosting left. We are already on this fifth color on the second row now, but we will switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category, set at about 10%. And again, this is our darker color, so we're going to focus this pretty much all on the left side pretty lightly here, like so. And then we'll grab our seventh color on the second row, the even darker one, and focus that even more so over here. And then we'll grab our sixth color on the second row, the lighter one, and focus that on the right side here. Want it to be nice and blended, so don't get too crazy with it. Okay, and now to add kind of another edge to our frosting to make it look nice and thick in 3D, we are going to grab the seventh color on the second row. Okay, so now we're going to switch to the soft airbrush under the airbrushing category, this thinner one down here. We're going to have it set to maybe 15%, and I'm going to zoom in here, and we are going to just create a dark shadow on the bottom edge of our frosting all the way around here, following the shape that we created as best as we can. So now it should look something like this. And then we're going to grab the 6th color on the second row, the lighter one, drop our brush size down to like 5%, and we are going to kind of follow the top edge of this with this lighter color now pretty lightly. As you get to the right side, it'll be a little harder to see since it's since our frosting is lighter over here, but that's okay. So now it should look something like this. Okay, and our lines look really harsh. That's how they're going to start, but we are now with alpha lock still turned on this layer. We're going to click our wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and drag this up to just like 5%, maybe even 3%, depending on how yours looks. Somewhere in there to just make the colors kind of blend a little bit, but not blended too much to where you can't see them anymore. So I'm just going to go with like 4% here to kind of blend them out a little bit better. Okay, and then we're going to go to our layer menu, add a new layer, drag it below all of our layers so far, grab the 8th color on the second row, and switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. Zoom in on the left side here, and I am just going to use this to make a little kind of lip that goes through the back of our cupcake there. And then the same thing on the right side here, just kind of to wrap it around or make it look like it wraps around like that. And then next we will go to our main frosting layer, make a duplicate of it. The one on the bottom, we should have it set to alpha lock. Click on it, set it to a clipping mask. Click the N on this layer, drag it up to multiply. And then we are going to use this 7th color on the second row and go back to our layer menu now. This one that we have here selected, click on it and click fill layer. And then we're going to click on it again, turn off alpha lock, click the wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and let's drag that up to maybe 8%, and then click the arrow tool even and drag it down a little bit so that we can see a little bit more of it. Not too much. Maybe about like right there, so that we have a nice little shadow peeking out under our frosting. Okay, so that completes our main cupcake part and our frosting. Okay, so now we will move on to the base of our cupcake, the bottom part. So we are going to add this underneath all of our current cupcake layers. So let's add a new layer, drag it below everything, and we will start here. We will grab the first color on the last row. We will grab our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. I have it at about 50%. And then I am going to turn on symmetry. So we are going to go to the gear icon, under canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, click edit drawing guide, click symmetry, and then you should see a vertical line. If you don't, you might need to select vertical under the options menu, and then go ahead and click done. Then let's go to our layer menu and make sure that this layer that we are on now at the bottom here says assisted. If it does not, click on it and turn on drawing assist. That means that our symmetry is active. So now I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and we are going to start on the right side, just underneath the big rounded edge of our cupcake here, maybe in here just a little bit. And I am going to make a curved line, hold it down about like this. From this point, I am going to start here and make a straight line, hold it down, and move it so that it's kind of going inwards towards the bottom. Click edit shape if you need to match it up at the top here a little bit better, and then also adjust the bottom if you need to. I might have mine be about right here. Okay, Then from this point at the bottom, we're going to make a curved line towards the middle, hold it down, click edit shape, and we do just want it to be like one big rounded line at the bottom, not like two rainbows. We want one rainbow, but we just want a slight curve to it. Again, match up the edges better if you need to. Then I'll grab my brush again and I will just kind of pretend to connect this on the top here and then go ahead and fill it in. If you need to, you can use your eraser tool to smooth out any of these edges. And then this is what we are left with. And the whole thing's a little too big, so I'm gonna grab my arrow tool, set it to uniform, downsize it a little bit, and then recenter it on my yellow line. I might even drag it up a little bit here on my cupcake so it's just barely sticking out on the sides. So maybe something about like this. Okay, now we will go to our layer menu. On this layer, click on it, turn off drawing assist, click on it again and turn on alpha lock. And we're going to start making our shadows and highlights and stuff. Okay, so let's grab the second color on the last row, switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category. Let's set that to maybe 10%. And I am just going to lightly kind of focus this mostly on just the very, very left side here. And then also along the bottom a little bit, kind of all the way through. And then let's drop our size down to maybe 5%. And I am going to focus this kind of just right under my cupcake a little bit, following kind of like the curved shape of our, cupcake paper, and then kind of hitting the other side. Then we'll grab the third color on the last row, same 5%, and I am just going to have this poking just underneath my cupcake all the way around to create a very dark shadow there. Like this. Then we will grab the fourth color on the last row. This is our kind of lighter color. Maybe we'll go up to like 10% again with this. And focus this just kind of all on the right side here, trying not to mess up the shadows that we created on the top, but just kind of focusing more so on this middle area a little bit more. We can always go in and fix our shadows if we need to, but let's just kind of brighten this whole little middle front right area up. About like this, kind of like more so on the top, leaving a little more shadow on the bottom. And then let's grab the fifth color on the last row and do the same thing, just focusing really on the top right area here and along the right side, like this. And then let's even drop the size to maybe like 3%. And I am just going to follow kind of the bottom of our shadow here, going a little over halfway through the left side. And then follow it back and then kind of make it a little bit wider as we get closer to the very right side here. So something about like this. Or if yours is really not looking very blended at all, you can also go to the wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and you can just blur this maybe 3 to 5% to really kind of smooth things out if you need to. I am going to go back in with my really, really dark color, the third one on the last row. And I am just going to make sure this side is nice and dark. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of this across the very bottom, pretty lightly. But just to add another little bit of shadow there. Maybe even a little just along the left side. So now it should look about like this. And now we're going to add like our folds throughout the cupcake paper. So let's add a new layer above this one. Click on it, set it to a clipping mask. Click on the N on this layer and set it to overlay. Then we're going to grab the sixth color on the last row and we are going to switch back to our soft airbrush here, this thinner one. And we are going to set the size to maybe 4%. And I'm just going to kind of lightly draw a straight line here, right where the middle symmetry line is. Hold it down, touch your finger to the screen to make it perfectly vertical, and then I'm just going to edit shape and line it up a little bit better so it's right on my symmetry line there. So I started at the top, so just naturally it's a little fainter there, and that's okay. But now we're going to go to our layer menu, and on this layer, click on it and turn on drawing assist. So now we want to use symmetry. I don't like using symmetry right in the middle because then you kind of get like double lines. But now I'm just going to go over a little bit, start here and make another line, and just angle it just slightly in at the bottom, just very, very slightly. And then I'm just going to keep going, trying to space them out pretty evenly. Again, always angling them back in just a little bit at the bottom, even a little bit more than we did last time. As we get further and further out, they'll angle in more and more. If you ever need to adjust them, you can always just click Edit Shape at the top and adjust either the spacing or the angle of the line. But see, now as we get kind of further towards the edge, they're angling in more and more to the point where this last one that I'll draw here will be angled about evenly with the edge of our cupcake paper, like so. Okay, so that's the first step of making our lines here. Make sure they all go to the top of our cupcake right underneath our little like shadowy line here. If they don't go high enough, or if they're too high, you can click the arrow tool and you can adjust it a little bit. I might set mine to freeform, drag the whole thing up just a teeny bit, and then I'm going to go back in with the eraser tool, set it to the soft brush under the airbrushing category at maybe 10%, and I'm just going to lightly go through and erase the top lines here so that they're kind of even all the way across. So you can do that if your lines aren't quite where they need to be, or adjust them as you see fit so that we get a nice set of lines here like so. Okay, so next we are going to go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer, the one that pops up on the bottom. We're going to leave it alone on overlay and a clipping mask, but click the wand icon, click Gaussian Blur, and drag it up to maybe 5%. And then we're going to click the arrow tool and we are going to move it to the right so that our highlights are right on the right side of our main lines that we drew before, like so. And then we're going to make a duplicate of this Gaussian blurred layer that we just did. Make a duplicate. I'm going to change this O, click on it now and drag it up to multiply this time. And then I'm going to click the arrow tool again and move this one to the left side so that we have a shadow on the left side of our main lines. So now it should look something like this, and it makes it look nice in 3D. And that is it for our cupcake bottom. Okay, and now we are going to draw the candle, which is also going to be behind our cupcake. So let's just go ahead and add a new layer, drag it below our cupcake bottom layer so that it's just behind everything. Grab the first color on the last row again, grab our selection tool, set it to rectangle with color fill turned on. And we are just going to start behind our cupcake here, a little to the left of our center line, draw up and create a nice little candlestick like so, and then let it go. Now, I don't have enough room for my flame up here really, there's not much room at all, so I am going to go ahead and just downsize all of my cupcake layers that I have so far. So I'm going to select all of them by sliding right on all of them, click the arrow tool on uniform and downsize everything, and then just try to get it back in the center as best we can. Maybe about right there. I kind of moved it down a little bit too, and then that leaves a little bit more room for our candle and our flame. So I'm going to find that layer now, grab the arrow tool, and let's just drag it down and hide it behind our cupcake a little bit, right about there. Okay, and now click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, Grab the second color on the last row and grab our soft brush again under the airbrushing category. And we are going to set that to maybe 5%. And we are just going to lightly kind of drag this vertically all along the left side. Grab the third color on the last row and do the same thing on the very edge to add a little shadow there. And then grab the fourth color on the last row and focus this on the right side. So now we should just kind of have like a little bit of a gradient where it's a little darker on the left, lighter on the right for our candle. Okay, now let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer above this, and this is where we will draw our flame. So let's grab the fifth color on the top row of our color palette, and we are going to switch back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. And we have that set to about 30%, and I'm just going to draw kind of a teardrop shape here, kind of at an angle. I might just kind of smooth it out, make it a little bit bigger, and then fill it in. And then I'm going to click my arrow tool and set it to warp and just kind of maybe make it a little bit rounder here and there. Now I'm going to click my arrow tool on uniform and just kind of rotate it a little and make sure it's nice, like the bottom of it's nice and centered above our candlestick, like this. And then we are going to do the same thing that we've been doing this whole time. So again, find our layer on the layer menu, click on it, turn on alpha lock. Grab the sixth color on the top row, switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category at 5% still, and we are going to focus this mostly on the bottom area, kind of following the shape of our bottom, like part of our candle, so kind of a rounded shape. Then grab the seventh color and focus just on the very edge to give it a little bit of a darker color there. And then grab the eighth color on the top row, and we are going to focus that just right on the top pointy part there to add a little bit of a highlight. And that is it for our candle flame. It's a little big for me. I'm going to click the arrow tool on uniform and just downsize it just a little bit. That looks a little better. About right there. And next we're going to add our sprinkles. So let's go ahead and add a new layer now on top of all of our layers at the very top. Grab the seventh color on the last row and switch back again to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at about 30 to 35%. And the first thing that we are going to do is just kind of, we're only going to make 3 of them, or I'm going to make 3 of them, and I'm just kind of making some like rounded rectangle shapes. So a long rectangle with just like some rounded corners and nothing too perfectly, straight or anything like that. Kind of a strange little shape here, like so. And then on the top, I'm going to make one as well that kind of goes off the top side of the cupcake at kind of a different angle here. And then one more on this side, kind of going off as well. Like so. And filling them in as we go. So take your time and kind of smooth them all out. And then again, we will do the same thing with them. We will go to our layer menu, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, grab the 8th color on the last row, the lighter purple, switch back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category. This time we're going to have to set it pretty low, maybe like 3%. And I'm going to focus this lighter color right in the middle of each of them, not touching the edges at all. And then let's grab the 9th color on the last row, the darker one, and just kind of focus on maybe the bottom edges of each of them to add a little 3D kind of effect there. Then we're going to go to our layer menu, make a duplicate of our sprinkle layer. The bottom one that we have is already set to alpha lock. That is what we want. Let's go ahead and grab the 7th color on the 2nd row here, this kind of pinkish one, because we are going to use this as a shadow color on our frosting, and the shadow on our frosting would be pinkish. So let's go ahead and then go back to our layer menu and this bottom one here, click on it and click fill layer. Click on the N on the layer and drag it up to multiply. and then click on the layer again and turn off alpha lock. Grab the wand icon, Gaussian Blur, and drag this up to maybe 5%, and then click the arrow tool and drag the shadow down and around a little bit to create a nice little shadow there. And then we don't want our shadow going off into the air like this. We want it just on our frosting. So let's go to our layer menu, click on this layer and set it to a clipping mask, and it should clip to our frosting layer. That should be the layer right below this. So rearrange your layers if you need to make sure that you can clip the shadow to your frosting layer here. And then lastly, we're just going to add some shadows on the ground around our cupcake. So let's add a new layer and just drag it all the way down below all of our layers here, right above our background color layer. And we used this first color on our color palette for the background layer, so we'll use these next three as shadows. So let's first grab the second one. We're going to use our soft brush for this. Let's set it to maybe 15%, and I'm just going to kind of drag this in a nice big oval motion, kind of like a flatter oval, right underneath my cupcake here. Add a new layer above this, grab the third color on the top row, drop the size down to maybe 10%, and I am just going to kind of make a shadow just to the left of my cupcake right here, kind of like in an upper left motion from the base of my cupcake. You can cover the base of it too a little bit, and it can go outside of it a little bit as well. Something about like this. And then add another new layer. And lastly, we will grab the fourth color on the top row, drop our size to maybe 5%, and we are just going to focus this right at the very bottom of our cupcake. Focus it around the bottom and then a little bit to the left, nothing to the right because our light is coming from that side, so have it going off a little bit on the left side like so. And that is it for our 3D cupcake today, so I hope you had fun. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more tutorials from me in the future. If you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it, so go ahead and post it and then tag me so that I can check it out. While you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching!